to 10k. Of course you do. That's why you're here. I've got you. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you 5 obscure tips. So hopefully tips that you haven't seen before in any of these kind of how to improve videos on basically how to improve your 10k. And maybe you'll find them useful, maybe you won't. But without further ado, sit back, relax, and yeah, let's get into some obscure 10k improvement tips so you can be fast like me. So guys, tip number 1 is maintaining your cadence. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, when you get onto those easy runs or those steady runs, you might be kind of thinking, I'm going to slow it down. And you're 100% right, the pace is going to slow. But what you should be doing is maintaining the cadence. So you want to make sure that your body's used to the turnover. And one way you can do this is by basically not reducing your cadence on easy runs. You're just going to decrease that stride length. Now, naturally, it's going to decrease a little bit. But what I'm talking about is maybe like a 5-10% decrease rather than like a 20-30% decrease. So maintaining that cadence. And this is something that people like Seth James Damore really kind of swear by as well. And I really like to do it on my easy runs. Maintaining that turnover, getting those legs moving, even on an easy run, but it still feels so much easier because your stride's much shorter. You're maybe not worrying about the pace as much. And yeah, that's one thing that I would say is just making sure you get that turnover. It gets your body used to how quick your legs are meant to be moving, even though you're not really injecting any pace. And then when you do increase that speed, the only thing you're doing basically is increasing that stride length. And I've just found it really works for me. So I tend to do some easy runs where I maintain the cadence, or call them a high cadence easy run if you like. And I just find they really work for me. So that's tip number 1. Hopefully you haven't heard of that one. Yeah, maintaining your cadence even on easy runs. So guys, this second tip is called negative split running. And I don't just mean in races, I mean in pretty much all of your runs, whether it's easy runs, steady runs. Trying to make sure that the last reps or the last kilometers are generally the quickest ones. Now, I'm not saying that you need to sandbag, and by sandbag I mean leaving everything to the last rep. We don't like that. Don't do that. What I mean by this is gradually increasing your pace through the runs, almost like mini progression runs. So essentially always finishing with kind of the last with the fastest pace. So this is something that even the Kenyans kind of implore into their training. Even on easy runs, they might be running at 5-minute Ks, but then the last K they'll generally pick it up quite a bit. And it's just to never let the body forget about the pace you want to be moving at, and also get the mind and the body used to always kind of quickening up towards the end. You don't want to be slowing down, because that's not conducive to fast running. So yeah, negative split training, basically trying to drill it into your body that we try and wind up runs, try and get them quicker as we go on. I'm not saying that you need to be knackered at the end of an easy run. That's not what I'm saying. But yeah, just trying to generally get the body moving the further you get into runs. Honestly, it's just been a game changer for me. It's given me much more kind of used to that feeling in a race where when you're winding it up, and it flies. And yeah, I've just found it really, really useful. So I don't know if I've explained that very well, but that's my second tip. Negative splitting pretty much all of your runs. So guys, tip number 3. This is potentially a bit of a controversial one, being as I've just picked up an injury. And that is learning what's an injury and learning what's a niggle. And this is something that's going to be very personal to you. You've got to learn your own body. But so many times I see people take time out of their training or take days off from their training for what I would call is a niggle, something that's maybe not going to develop into anything bigger, but because they're scared or because they don't quite understand how their body reacts in these situations. And that's where it's really key to start understanding the difference between a niggle and an injury, because injuries, you definitely need to stop running, you need to relax, you need to chill out, and these are going to be the things that are going to be very, very painful. But a little niggle, so maybe your knees not feeling 100%, but it's not causing you loads of pain, it's going to be these are going to be the things that you can typically run off. I know it's not a very medical term, and by all means, please rest if in doubt. If you're unsure, rest. It's always going to be safer. But I think one thing that I really learned for me is learning that when you're training or when you're at peak training, you're always going to be getting niggles. So for every time I got a tiny little niggle, I was taking time off to let it kind of go away or reduce the symptoms, then I would just never be training, because I'm always picking up these little niggles here and there. So yeah, that's tip number 3, is starting to learn your body, learn about the difference between what's a niggle, what's an injury. It's something that's going to take time. It's something that no one else can really teach you. But yeah, I think it's a really important one, and hopefully you'll find that useful, something to think about when you're about to go for your run, or when you're about to call it a day and you go, yeah, I think I'm injured. Maybe try and take a step back, an objective opinion. Is it an injury? Is it a niggle? Some would say they're both very similar, but I would say niggles are things you can typically run through. and yeah, aren't major. So yeah, it's a bit of a controversial one. If in doubt, please rest. But I like to see if I can run things off quite a lot, and 99% out of 100, I am able to do that. So yeah, you're not Superman, you're not Superwoman. But yeah, hopefully that's something to think about. So guys, tip number 4 is strengthening your mind. Now 10k for me is one of the hardest distances to get right. It's not miles off your absolute flat out pace, and you've got to hold it for 6+ miles. For me, that's just under 31 minutes. But for you guys watching at home, that could be anything. I don't know, I doubt any elites are watching this, but anything from 27 minutes all the way up to maybe an hour plus. So obviously, of course, if you're running at your almost max effort pace, not far off, for 6 miles, you're going to be knackered. So one thing that I really like to do is I like to visualize how I'm going to feel in the race, and that is by trying to make the race seem in my head as painful as possible. So then when I'm actually in the race situation and it's not as painful, it's like a mental boost. It's like, oh, actually, this doesn't feel so bad. So trying to visualize the race, think it over in your brain, so nothing is out of the blue, nothing's unexpected, and it all kind of feels like it's starting to slot into plan, because I think confidence is so underrated when it comes to running. And it's not that kind of superficial confidence where you think you might do well. It's that deep confidence where you've put weeks and weeks of training together. So yeah, so if you can visualize the goal, visualize the target, and kind of almost will it into existence, I think that strengthens your mind. And yeah, just be prepared for it to hurt. Tell your body it's going to hurt. Tell yourself it's going to hurt, because 6 miles or 10k of race pace, it's gonna hurt. So many people have said, oh yeah, I was expecting to feel right at halfway. Probably not. When you don't feel good at halfway, it's not unexpected. You need to basically get it done, get your head down, and yeah, just trying to strengthen that brain, strengthen that mind, strengthen that psychology. I think it's really important for me. So guys, this 5th and final tip for how to improve your 10k, and I know I mentioned that I wasn't going to really kind of hone in on, say, a specific recovery method or recovery as a whole, but one thing that I found really useful for me at the moment is this cold water immersion. So this is kind of a Wim Hof style sort of thing, plunge pool, legs in a pond, legs in the sea, whatever you want to call it. And it's just been an absolute game changer for me. So I started doing this when I was in Portugal on a training camp in April. So we'd get out for our run and then come back and get straight into the pool. Now, it wasn't freezing cold, but it was cold enough that it's kind of causing those blood vessels to constrict, reducing that inflammation in the legs. So then when I was doing a second run that day or a training session the next day, the legs just felt like they'd recovered so much better. So that's my 5th tip, is really having an experiment with cold water immersion. I'm not a fan of water. I would say I'm a bit phobic towards like open water, deep sea, that sort of thing. But a small little pool or the bath, I found is really, really useful to getting those legs recovered. And it's not nice. I'm not gonna sit there and pretend that it's nice being in that water for 10 minutes. But how good you feel afterwards, and then how good you feel in consequent running, it's just, honestly, it's an absolute game changer. So give it a go, give it an experiment, and yeah, get those legs into some cold water. So guys, those are my 5 obscure tips for how to improve your 10k. Hopefully I've managed to word them in a way that's understandable to another human being. I can't say wordplay is or linguism or whatever it is. I can't say speaking or explaining things is my forte. But as I alluded to earlier in the video, guys, I have unfortunately picked up a little injury. And this is an injury, not a niggle. So I've been kind of nursing this left Achilles problem that I've had for a few weeks since the high gain night at 10Ks. And just as I feel like that's kind of dipping down, my right hamstring goes on a run this morning. So yeah, I did 5K and then stopped. And then went out for a cycle instead. So yeah, the right hamstring, I think it's probably the tendon where it's attaching onto the insertion point onto the back of your pelvis. It's just very sore when I kind of flex my hip above 30-40 degrees. So yeah, it just so happens that I've got quite a few uni exams coming up, so I'm going to take some time. Not going to be complete rest. I'll probably take 3-4 days off from running, and then maybe start easy running again. Nothing that's going to affect my fitness too much. Just might feel a little bit sluggish when I come back. But I think it's just important to take some time, reduce the stress on the body while the stress on the mind is a little bit higher with my exams, etc. So then when my exams are out of the way, I can kind of enjoy, hopefully, an injury-free summer of running. But yeah, anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video of obscure 10K tips and tricks, I guess. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. And if you've got any contradictions to some of the things I say, please feel free to put it down in the comments. I love a healthy debate. And if you've got any more kind of obscure tips and tricks, pop them down below. I really like these sorts of things. Like, for example, the other day I said I was getting quite a dry mouth when I was racing, and someone said to chew gum. So I've been chewing gum on some runs, and I actually found it helped. So big shout out to the man that wrote that on my video. Really appreciate that. And yeah, please like, subscribe, share with your running buddies. If it's easy, then what's the point? And I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.